2 years after Pete Morrison made a knife in front of thousands of aliens, Jake returned to Montana for what had become an annual event, the Convergence Craft Festival. What had started as a small gathering of Pete's students had grown into something much larger, a celebration of traditional crafts from across the galaxy. The field behind Pete's house, which had once held just his garage and a small garden, now hosted dozens of temporary workshops. Human craftspeople worked alongside alien students and masters, sharing techniques and learning from each other. A Korvax forge master demonstrated advanced layer welding, while a Japanese swordsmith showed traditional katana polishing. A Gentar crystallographer worked with a human glassblower to create pieces that incorporated both their materials. Pottery wheels, looms, carving benches, and anvils were scattered across the space, all of them in active use. Pete stood at the entrance to his original garage workshop, now a historic site that had been carefully preserved exactly as it was on the day Thralketh and the first students arrived. He was older now, his hair fully gray, and his hands showed the wear of decades of forge work, but his eyes were bright as he watched the festival unfold. "Never thought my garage would end up in history books," he commented to Jake, who stood beside him. "You're in more than history books, Uncle Pete." They're teaching the Damascus demonstration in xenoanthropology classes across the galaxy. Kids on 100 worlds learn about the human who changed galactic perspectives on craft and technology. Pete shook his head, still somewhat uncomfortable with his unexpected fame. "All I did was make a knife." "You made a knife that made people think differently," Jake corrected. "That's more important than you realize." The impact of that single demonstration had rippled outward in ways no one could have predicted. Earth had become known as the craft world, a planet where ancient skills were not just preserved but actively practiced and valued. Tourism from other species had increased dramatically, with visitors coming specifically to study in human workshops or attend craft festivals. But it went deeper than just cultural exchange. The philosophical implications of humanity's approach to work and skill had sparked debates across the galaxy. Species that had fully automated their production were reconsidering whether they had lost something important in the process. Some had even begun programs to revive their own traditional crafts, skills that had been abandoned centuries or millennia ago. The Korvax had been particularly affected. Thralketh, after returning from his apprenticeship with Pete, had opened a traditional forge school on his home world. Young Korvax were learning to work metal by hand, to develop the intuition and muscle memory that their species had replaced with computers generations ago. It was controversial among the older generation but wildly popular with the youth, who saw it as a way to connect with their cultural roots. "Thralketh tells me there are now over 50 manual forges operating on Korvax Prime," Jake said. "He says you started a renaissance of traditional craftsmanship among his people." "He did the work himself," Pete replied. "I just showed him it was possible." They walked through the festival together, stopping to watch various demonstrations. At one station, a human woodworker was teaching a group of mixed species how to cut dovetail joints by hand. At another, a Venn metal spinner was showing humans how her people shaped bowls without welding or casting. The exchange went both ways now, with aliens teaching humans techniques that had been lost or never developed on Earth. Commander Lisa Grant Hay. The alarm screamed through every corridor of the Starbreaker, and Commander Vexthor knew immediately that something terrible had happened. He ran from his quarters toward the bridge, his forearms grabbing his uniform jacket as he moved. Other crew members rushed past him, their faces showing the same fear he felt in his chest. In his 30 years of service to the Galactic Security Force, he had never heard that particular alarm. It was the one they used for extinction-level threats. When he reached the bridge, his second officer, Krazik, was already there, staring at the main screen with his scales turned pale gray. That color meant absolute terror for his species. Vexthor looked at the screen and felt his own blood run cold. The words displayed there seemed impossible. "Containment breach, Station Erebus, Subject 0 escaped." "Tell me this is a malfunction," Vexthor said quietly. His voice came out steady, but his hands were shaking. He gripped the command chair to hide it. Krazik turned to face him, and his eyes were wide. "Sir, I have confirmed it 3 times. The Void Reaper is no longer in containment. The entire security team at Station Erebus is dead. All 47 guards. It took them less than 6 minutes." Vexthor sat down heavily. "The Void Reaper? Even the name made experienced soldiers nervous. It was the most dangerous creature ever discovered in the known galaxy. Scientists had classified it as a Class X predator, which meant it was a threat to entire planetary populations. The creature had been found on a dead world in the Outer Rim, and when the research team tried to study it, the thing killed everyone except one scientist who managed to seal herself in an escape pod. After that incident, 3 separate colony worlds had been destroyed before the Galactic Council finally managed to capture it. The mission to contain the Void Reaper had cost 2,000 lives and required the combined military forces of 6 different species. They had locked it away on Station Erebus, the most secure facility ever built, buried deep in an asteroid field where no one would accidentally stumble upon it. The station had force fields, armed guards, weapon systems, and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Somehow none of that had mattered. How did it escape? Vexthor demanded. Show me the security footage. Krozik pressed several buttons and the main screen changed. It showed the containment cell from multiple angles. The Void Reaper sat in the center of the cell, almost motionless. It was massive, nearly 4 meters tall when standing. Its body was covered in dark chitinous armor that could deflect most energy weapons. 6 limbs extended from its torso, each ending in claws sharp enough to cut through reinforced steel. Its head held multiple eyes arranged in a circle, giving it complete visual awareness of its surroundings. The mouth was the worst part, a circular opening filled with rows and rows of serrated teeth that rotated like a meat grinder. Vexthor watched as one of the guards approached the cell to deliver food. The standard procedure required 3 guards, but he could only see 1 on the footage. That was the first mistake. The guard placed the food container in the delivery slot, and suddenly the Void Reaper moved. It was so fast that the cameras barely caught it. 1 second it was sitting still. The next second it had ripped through the force field like it was paper. The guard died instantly. The alarm started, but by then it was too late. The creature moved through the station like death itself. It could change its body color to match its surroundings, making it nearly invisible. Its blood was acidic and burned through floors and walls. When the security teams tried to stop it, their weapons barely slowed it down. Every wound they managed to inflict healed within seconds. And worst of all, the creature was intelligent. It deliberately destroyed the communication systems first, preventing anyone from calling for help until it was already gone. The footage ended with the Void Reaper entering an escape pod and launching itself into space. Krozik froze the final frame, showing the pod's trajectory. Sir, we tracked the pod's course. It crash-landed on a planet approximately 72 hours ago. Which planet? Vexthor asked, though he already dreaded the answer. Earth, sir, in a region called North America. Specifically a rural area in a territory called Montana. Vexthor closed his eyes. Earth, the human's homeworld. He had heard stories about Earth and its inhabitants, though he had never visited. The planet was classified as a death world by galactic standards. It had extreme weather, deadly predators, poisonous plants, and countless diseases. Most civilized species considered it barely habitable. The humans who evolved there were equally strange. They were persistence hunters who could run for days without stopping. They healed from injuries that would kill other species. They could survive on almost any food source. And they were absolutely insane by any rational standard, but they were also relatively primitive. Their space travel technology was limited, and they had only recently made contact with the wider galactic community. Most humans lived peaceful lives, farming their land or working in their cities. They would have no idea how to deal with a Class X predator. The Void Reaper would slaughter them by the thousands. We need to move immediately, Vexthor said, standing up. Contact Dr. Elena in biocontainment and have her meet us in the shuttle bay. Get Jarn from Tactical as well. We will take a strike team to Earth and neutralize the creature before it can adapt to the environment and start breeding. Sir, Krozik said carefully, the Galactic Council has already been informed. They are authorizing any means necessary to contain this threat. That includes orbital bombardment if we cannot guarantee elimination of the target. Vexthor felt sick. Orbital bombardment meant destroying everything in a large radius around the creature's location. It meant killing any humans who lived nearby, but he understood the Council's reasoning. If the Void Reaper established itself on Earth and began to reproduce, it could eventually spread across the entire planet. The humans would never survive that. Better to sacrifice a few thousand lives now than risk billions later. Understood, he said quietly. Prepare the Starbreaker for immediate departure. I want to be in Earth's orbit within 12 hours. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. Vexthor assembled his team and briefed them on the situation. Dr. Elena was a Corthan scientist, brilliant but nervous. She had studied the Void Reaper for years and probably knew more about it than anyone alive. Jarn was a Drexian warrior, cold and professional who had participated in the original capture mission. Krazik would serve as weapons specialist, and Vexthor would lead the operation personally. They reviewed everything known about the Void Reaper. It was an apex predator with no natural enemies. Its species had apparently evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill everything else, and they had become the ultimate survivors. They could eat almost any organic matter. They could survive extreme temperatures, radiation, and even brief exposure to vacuum. Their senses were incredibly acute, able to detect prey from kilometers away, and they were smart enough to use tactics, set traps, and learn from their mistakes. The good news, Dr. Yelena said during the briefing, is that the creature should still be injured from the crash. Even with its regenerative abilities, it will need time to fully heal. We may be able to track it before it becomes mobile enough to hunt effectively. And the bad news? Vexthor asked. Dr. Yelena's tentacles writhed nervously. If it is already healed, if it is already adapted to Earth's environment, then we may be too late. These creatures are ambush predators. It could be hiding anywhere, watching, waiting. We will not know it is there until it attacks. The Starbreaker reached Earth orbit exactly 11 hours and 43 minutes after departing. Vexthor stood on the bridge looking down at the blue and green planet below. It looked peaceful from space. Beautiful even. He tried not to think about the monster hiding somewhere on its surface. Scanning for the creature's biosignature now, Krazik reported. His fingers moved across his console, and several screens lit up with data. I have it, sir. The signal is coming from the projected crash site. It appears to be stationary. Stationary? Jarn said, his voice full of suspicion. That is unusual. The creature should be hunting by now, establishing territory. Maybe it is still healing, Dr. Elena suggested, or maybe it is waiting for nightfall to move. The crash site is in an agricultural area with a small human population. Perhaps it is observing them, learning their patterns before it strikes. Vexthor made his decision. We go in now while we know where it is. Prepare the shuttle for immediate launch. Full combat loadout. If we can catch it while it is weak, we end this quickly. The strike team loaded into the shuttle with enough weapons to level a small building. They wore armor rated to withstand the Void Reaper's claws and acid blood. Each of them carried tranquilizer darts specifically designed for the creature's metabolism, though no one really believed tranquilizers would work. The mission was simple. Find the creature, kill it, confirm the kill, and return to orbit before anyone knew they were there. As the shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, Vexthor reviewed the mission parameters one more time. The crash site was near a small human settlement. Population approximately 200. Primary occupation was agriculture. They grew crops and raised livestock. Simple. Vexthor crouched at the edge of the forest, his tactical scanner showing the impossible. The Void Reaper's biosignature was strong and clear, pulsing from inside the large red building that humans called a barn. But everything else was wrong. The readings showed no signs of violence, no bodies, no blood traces, nothing that indicated the presence of a Class X predator. This does not make sense, Jarn whispered beside him. The Drexian warrior's skin had turned a darker shade of blue, which meant he was deeply confused. By now, the creature should have killed every living thing within a 5-kilometer radius. Where are the bodies? Dr. Elena adjusted her scanner and made a small noise of surprise. I am detecting multiple life signs in and around that barn. Human life signs. They are alive, and their biosignatures show no signs of stress or fear. How is this possible? Krazik pointed toward the fields. Sir, there are animals out there. Large mammals, just standing in the grass. The Void Reaper is an apex predator. Those animals should be running in terror or they should be dead. Vexthor watched as several large animals with black and white spots wandered slowly across a field. His translator identified them as cattle, a domesticated food animal that humans raised. The cattle appeared completely calm, occasionally lowering their heads to eat grass. In all his years of military service, Vexthor had never seen anything like this. Prey animals had instincts. They could sense predators. These cattle should be screaming and running, but instead they were eating grass as if it was just another normal day. We proceed with caution, Vexthor decided. The creature might be injured worse than we thought, or possibly in some kind of hibernation state. Either way, we need to neutralize it before it wakes up. Jarn, take point. Krazik, stay on R6 and watch for ambush. Dr. Yelena, stay in the middle and keep scanning. If that thing moves, I want to know immediately. The team moved out of the forest and into the open field. Vexthor felt exposed and vulnerable. The tall grass came up to his knees, and anything could be hiding in it. The barn was about 200 meters away, and every step felt like it took an hour. His finger stayed on the trigger of his plasma rifle, ready to fire at the slightest movement. They were halfway to the barn when a door on the side of the human house opened. Vexthor immediately raised his weapon, and the entire team dropped into combat stances. A figure emerged from the house, and Vexthor's scanner identified it as a human male, approximately 45 Earth years old. No weapons detected. The human was tall by the standards of his species, maybe 1.8 meters. He wore blue pants made of heavy fabric and a shirt with a checked pattern in red and black. On his head sat a wide-brimmed hat, and he carried a metal container in one hand. The human saw the armed aliens in his field and stopped walking. He stared at them for a long moment, then raised his free hand in what the scanner said was a peaceful greeting gesture. "Well," the human called out in a calm voice, "this is new. We don't get many visitors out here, and we definitely don't get ones from off-planet. You folks lost?" Vexthor was so surprised by the casual tone that he almost forgot to activate his translator. When he finally found his voice, he said, "This area is under galactic security quarantine. You need to evacuate immediately. There is a dangerous creature nearby." The human tilted his head, looking puzzled. "Dangerous creature? You mean like a bear? We get those sometimes, but mostly they stay up in the mountains." "No," Vexthor said, trying to stay patient. "A Class X predator. It is extremely dangerous. It crashed here several days ago. Have you seen anything unusual? Any signs of a large creature?" The human scratched his beard, which was starting to show gray hairs. "Well, now that you mention it, yeah. Carl showed up about 3 days back. Gave the chickens quite a scare at first, but he settled down nice enough." There was a moment of absolute silence. Vexthor stared at the human. Jarn stared at the human. Even Dr. Yelena's tentacles stopped moving. Finally, Krazik said, "Carl? You named it Carl?" "Well, I had to call him something," the human said reasonably. "He didn't come with a collar or nothing. Found him in the north field, looking pretty beat up. Figured he fell out of that bright light I saw in the sky. Some kind of meteor or spacecraft or whatever. I helped him get to the barn, gave him some food and water, and he's been there since. Real good with the rats, too. Hasn't had a single one near the feed bag since Carl moved in." Vexthor felt like his brain had stopped working. This human was describing the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, as if it was a lost pet. "Sir," he said carefully, "I need you to understand something. The creature you call Carl is responsible for the deaths of thousands of beings across multiple worlds. It is not a pet. It is a killing machine designed by evolution to be the perfect predator." The human looked skeptical. "Are you sure we are talking about the same critter? Because Carl is real gentle, follows me around like a puppy, even lets my neighbor's kid pet him." "Impossible," Jarn said flatly. "The Void Reaper does not allow physical contact. It kills anything that comes near it." "Well, I don't know about any Void Reapers," the human said, "but Carl is about 12 feet tall, has a bunch of arms, lots of eyes, and teeth like a combine harvester. That sound like your guy?" "Yes," Dr. Yelena said faintly. "That sounds exactly like our guy." The human nodded. "Yeah, that's Carl. He is in the barn right now. I was just bringing him some lunch. He really likes my stew, especially if I add extra beef. You folks want to meet him? He is probably awake by now." Vexthor looked at his team. Jarn's hand was gripping his weapon so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Krazik's scales were flickering between colors, which happened when his species was experiencing extreme stress. Dr. Yelena was making calculations on her datapad so quickly that her tentacles were a blur. "You are telling me," Vexthor said slowly, "that you have been living with the Void Reaper for 3 days and it has not tried to kill you?" "Carl? No, he is real sweet. Little shy at first, but he warmed up quick once he figured out I wasn't going to hurt him. I think somebody must have been real mean to him before because he had all these scars and he flinched every time I moved too fast. But he is doing much better now. This could not be happening." Vexthor had spent his entire career in the military, had studied every known species and threat in the galaxy, and nothing in his training prepared him for a human who had apparently domesticated a Class X predator in 3 days. "I need to see this creature immediately," he said. The human shrugged. "Sure, come on. Name's Jake, by the way. Jake Morrison. I own this farm. Been in my family for 3 generations now. Commander Vex Thor, Galactic Security Force." Vex Thor replied automatically. "These are my officers, Jarn Krazik and Dr. Yelena." "Pleased to meet you," Jake said cheerfully. "Come on, Barnes, this way." "Just watch your step. I have not had a chance to clean out the stalls today, so it might be a bit smelly." Jake started walking toward the barn as if he was giving a tour to tourists instead of leading a military strike team to confront the galaxy's most dangerous predator. Vex Thor signaled his team to follow, keeping their weapons ready. Every instinct he had was screaming that this was a trap, that the creature was using this human as bait somehow. But Jake seemed completely sincere and utterly unafraid. As they got closer to the barn, Vex Thor noticed more details. The building was old but well-maintained, painted red with white trim. There were windows on the upper level, and a large door that appeared to slide open on metal tracks. Next to the barn was a fenced area with more of those cattle animals, and a smaller building that housed chickens. Everything looked normal, peaceful, safe. Jake reached the barn door and pushed it open. "Carl, you awake, buddy? Got some lunch for you and some visitors who want to say hello." The smell hit Vex Thor first. It was the distinctive scent of Earth farm animals, hay, manure, and something sweet that might have been grain. But underneath that was another smell, one that made his combat instincts flare to life. It was the smell of the Void Reaper, a sharp, chemical scent that every soldier who had ever faced one learned to recognize instantly. Jake walked into the barn without hesitation, and Vex Thor forced himself to follow. The inside was dimly lit, with sunlight streaming through cracks in the walls and the open door. He could see farming equipment, piles of hay, and several enclosed areas that Jake had called stalls. And in the largest stall, clearly visible now that his eyes adjusted to the lower light, was the Void Reaper. It was exactly as terrifying as Vex Thor remembered. 4 meters of armored death with claws that could shred steel and a mouthful of rotating teeth. The creature was standing, all 6 of its limbs visible, and its multiple eyes were focused on the newcomers. Vex Thor raised his weapon and heard his team do the same. "Carl, no," Jake said in a firm voice. "These are friends. Well, maybe friends. At least they're not here to hurt you. Everybody relax." The Void Reaper made a sound, a low rumbling that Vex Thor's training identified as a threat display. The creature's claws extended and its body began to shift colors, preparing for combat. This was it. This was when it would attack. Vex Thor's finger tightened on the trigger. Jake walked right up to the creature and smacked it lightly on one of its. For several long minutes, nobody spoke. The strike team stood frozen in the barn doorway, watching Jake Morrison scratch the galaxy's most feared predator behind what he called its ears, while an elderly dog slept peacefully against its side. The Void Reaper made a sound that Vex Thor's translator struggled to identify, finally settling on the word purring. "This is not real," Jarn said finally. His voice sounded strange, higher than normal. "I have fought this species before. I watched them tear through reinforced battle armor like it was cloth. I saw them dissolve steel doors with their blood. They do not purr. They do not make friends with dogs. This is some kind of trick." "It is no trick," Dr. Yelena said, still scanning the creature. "That is definitely a Void Reaper. Genetic markers confirm it. But Commander, look at these readings. The creature's baseline aggression levels are 70% lower than the documented average for its species. Its stress hormones are normal, not elevated. And look here. Its digestive system shows it has been eating cooked food and plant matter. Void Reapers are obligate carnivores. They should not be able to digest plants at all." "Well, I do not know about all that science stuff," Jake said, pulling an apple from his pocket and offering it to Carl. "But he seems to like vegetables just fine. Apples are his favorite. He also really loves corn on the cob, though watching him eat it is pretty funny, all those teeth spinning around." The Void Reaper took the apple carefully with one of its smaller claws and bit into it. The sound of crunching echoed through the barn. Vex Thor watched as the creature that had killed thousands ate an apple like a child eating a snack. "How?" Vex Thor asked. It was all he could manage to say. "How did you do this?" Jake looked surprised by the question. "I did not do anything special. He showed up in my field looking scared and hurt. He had burn marks all over his body and a big cut on his side. I figured he was in pain and probably pretty confused, so I just talked to him real calm and gentle. Let him know I was not going to hurt him. Once he figured that out, he followed me to the barn. I got him some water, cleaned his wounds, and gave him some food. That's all. That is all? Krazik repeated. You approached a Class X predator, one of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, and you just talked to it calmly. Well, yeah, Jake said. I mean, I have dealt with plenty of dangerous animals before. We had a bull named Thunder a few years back who charged at anything that moved, mean as they come. But I spent time with him, talked to him, treated him with respect, and eventually he calmed down, even let my niece ride on his back. Animals are not that different from people. They get scared, they get angry, they remember being hurt, but they also remember kindness. Dr. Yelena moved closer to the Void Reaper, her scanner still active. May I examine him more closely? She asked Jake. Sure, but ask Carl first. He is the one you'll be poking at. Dr. Yelena looked at the creature. Carl, she said carefully, may I scan you? I promise I will not hurt you. The Void Reaper turned its head to look at her. Multiple eyes focused on the Korthan scientist, and for a moment Vexthor thought it might attack. But then the creature simply lowered its head in what seemed like a nod. Dr. Yelena approached slowly. Her tentacles extended and began running her scanner over the creature's body. Fascinating, she murmured. There is significant scar tissue here, here, and here. Old wounds healed badly, burns from energy weapons, cuts that appear to be from surgical tools. And look at this, Commander. There are marks on its limbs consistent with restraints. Heavy restraints used for extended periods. Vexthor stepped closer, keeping his weapon lowered but ready. He could see what Dr. Yelena was talking about. The creature's dark armor showed lighter patches where injuries had healed. Some of them looked old, years old perhaps. What are you saying? He asked. I am saying this creature has been tortured, Dr. Yelena said quietly, extensively and repeatedly. These are not battle wounds, Commander. These are the marks of scientific experimentation, probably performed without anesthesia or pain management. Someone hurt this creature very badly over a very long time. Jake's face changed. His expression went from friendly to something cold and angry. You mean somebody did this to him on purpose? Hurt him like that for no good reason? The facility where we kept the Void Reaper was primarily a research station, Vexthor admitted. He felt something uncomfortable in his chest, something that might have been shame. The scientists there were trying to understand its abilities, its biology. I suppose their methods might have been aggressive. Aggressive, Jake said, and his voice was hard now. That's a funny way to say torture. No wonder Carl was so scared when I first found him. Somebody taught him that people only mean pain. Well, that ends now. Nobody is going to hurt him again, not while he is on my property. Sharn made a sound of disbelief. Human, you do not understand what you are protecting. That creature killed 3,000 beings on Colony 7. It destroyed an entire settlement. The victims included children. Did it? Jake challenged. Or did scared, tortured animal lash out at the people who were hurting it? Because from where I am standing, Carl here has been nothing but gentle. He is not attacking anyone. He is not hunting. He is just trying to live in peace. Maybe if your people had treated him better from the start, those deaths would never have happened. Vexthor wanted to argue, but he found he could not. He thought about the reports from the original capture mission. The Void Reaper had been found on a dead world, alone and starving. When the scientists had tried to study it, they had used force fields and weapons to control it. Every time it showed aggression, they had hurt it more, trying to make it submit. They had created a monster through their cruelty, and then blamed the creature for being what they made it. Sir, Dr. Yelena said, I believe Mr. Morrison may be correct. Void Reapers are apex predators, yes, but they are also highly intelligent. Intelligence implies the ability to learn, to remember, to form associations. If this creature's only experience with sentient beings was pain and captivity, of course it would react with violence. But look at it now. 3 days with a human who showed it kindness, and its entire behavioral profile has changed. Jake walked over to a shelf and pulled down a large container. I made some peach cobbler yesterday. Carl really likes it. Watch this. He opened the container and the smell of baked peaches and cinnamon filled the air. Carl, you want some dessert? The Void Reaper's head snapped toward Jake so fast that Krazik raised his weapon, but the creature was not attacking. It was excited. It made happy chirping sounds and moved toward Jake with surprising gentleness, considering its size. Jake spooned out a large portion of the cobbler onto a metal plate and set it down. Carl picked up the plate and began eating, making those purring sounds again. He has got such a sweet tooth, Jake said, smiling. I am going to have to start making double batches. While the Void Reaper ate its dessert, Vexthor noticed something else strange. There was a small bird perched on one of the barn's rafters. It was chirping and hopping around, completely unafraid. As he watched, the bird flew down and landed on Carl's back. The creature paused in its eating, turned one eye to look at the bird, and then went back to the cobbler. The bird hopped around on the armor plating, pecking at small insects it found there. The animals are not afraid of it, Vexthor said. Why would they be? Jake asked. Carl has not heard any of them. The horses were nervous at first, but they settled down once they saw he was not interested in chasing them. Even the chickens ignore him now. Animals are smarter than people give them credit for. They know when something is dangerous and when it is not. A thought occurred to Vexthor. You said your neighbor's child has pet this creature? Oh yeah, little Lucy from the Bennett farm down the road. She is about 10 years old, sweetest kid you ever met. She came by yesterday to see if I needed any help with chores, like she does every week. She saw Carl and got all excited. I was worried at first, but Carl was real gentle with her. Let her braid flowers into those spine things on his back. She wants to enter him in the county fair next month as her pet project. Jarn made a strangled sound. You let a human child approach a Class X predator? I let a kid meet my friend Carl, Jake corrected. And he was perfect with her. Real careful not to move too fast, kept his claws pulled in, even lowered himself down so she could reach easier. He knows she's little and needs him to be extra gentle. Dr. Yelena was frantically taking notes. This is revolutionary. We have been trying to understand Void Reaper behavior for decades. We thought they were mindless killing machines driven by instinct and hunger. But if they are capable of this level of social behavior, of forming bonds, of recognizing and protecting the vulnerable, then we have completely misunderstood their species. Maybe you just never gave them a chance, Jake said simply. You saw monsters, so that is what they became. But every living thing deserves kindness. Every creature wants to be safe and comfortable and cared for. That's not human nature or alien nature, that is just nature. Vexthor found himself looking at Jake Morrison with new respect. This human, this farmer with dirt under his fingernails and hay in his hair, had accomplished something the entire Galactic Council could not. The strike team set up their equipment in Jake's guest house, which was a small building behind the main house that Jake said his parents used to live in before they passed. It had beds, a kitchen, and running water, everything they needed for extended observation. Vexthor established a communication link with the Starbreaker in orbit and filed a preliminary report stating they had located the Void Reaper and were assessing the threat level. He carefully did not mention anything about Peach Cobbler or elderly dogs. Over the next 3 days, the team watched Jake and Carl in amazement. Every morning, Jake would go to the barn around 6 o'clock and greet Carl with a cheerful, "Good morning, buddy." The Void Reaper would respond with happy chirping sounds and follow Jake around as he did his morning chores. Carl learned to help with tasks. His multiple arms and great strength made him excellent at moving hay bales and lifting heavy equipment. Jake taught him to be careful around the smaller animals, and Carl learned quickly. On the second day, Vexthor watched as Jake took Carl out to the cattle fields. The cows had finally gotten used to the creature's presence and barely looked up as he approached. One young calf had gotten separated from its mother and was bawling in distress. Carl walked over carefully, picked up the calf with surprising gentleness, and carried it back to the mother. The mother cow looked at Carl, mooed once, and went back to eating grass. Did you see that? Dr. Yelena said excitedly. The creature recognized the calf's distress and responded with helping behavior. That indicates empathy, social awareness, and problem-solving skills far beyond what we documented. This is incredible. Jarn was less impressed. It is also dangerous. The creature could have easily killed that calf. Just because it chose not to does not mean it will not choose differently tomorrow. But as the days passed, even Jarn began to change his opinion. He watched Carl play with the farm animals, carefully controlling his strength so he did not hurt them. He saw the creature waiting patiently while Jake prepared meals, never demanding or aggressive, and on the third day something happened that changed everything. A snake appeared in the barn, a venomous species that Jake identified as a rattlesnake. The snake was coiled near where Rusty was sleeping, and when the old dog moved, the snake struck. Carl moved faster than Vexthor had ever seen anything move. One moment he was across the barn. The next he had caught the snake in mid-strike, crushing it instantly. Rusty was completely unharmed. Carl had protected the dog without any thought for his own safety. He saved Rusty, Jake said quietly, scratching Carl behind his sensory ridges. Good boy, Carl, you are such a good boy. Carl made his purring sound and leaned into the affection. Vexthor realized something important. This was not just taming or training. This was genuine bonding. Carl cared about Jake and the animals on the farm. He had formed a family. On the fourth day, other humans started arriving. Jake had invited his neighbors over for what he called a barbecue, which apparently meant cooking meat outdoors and socializing. Vexthor wanted to stop this, wanted to maintain security, but Jake insisted it would be fine. The first to arrive was an elderly human female named Betty Hayes. She lived on the neighboring property and had known Jake since he was a child. She walked into the barn without hesitation, saw Carl and said, "Well, I'll be. Jake, you did not tell me you adopted something this big. Does he eat much?" "A fair amount," Jake admitted. "But he earns his keep. Got rid of all the rats and he helps with the heavy lifting." Betty walked right up to Carl and peered at him. "He is kind of cute in an ugly sort of way. Those teeth are something else. You taking good care of Jake, Carl? Making sure he eats proper meals? That boy forgets to feed himself sometimes." Carl chirped at her and lowered his head. Betty, showing no fear whatsoever, patted one of his armored plates. "Good. You keep looking after each other." More humans arrived throughout the afternoon. A young couple named Dan and Marie Cooper came with their 2 children. The children, ages 6 and 8, immediately wanted to play with Carl. Jake supervised carefully, but Carl was incredibly gentle with them. He let them climb on his back, pretended to chase them around the yard, and even played a game where they threw a ball and he retrieved it. "He is like a giant dog," Dan said, watching his children laugh as Carl carefully tossed them in the air and caught them. "A really weird-looking giant dog, but still. I have never seen anything like it." Lucy Bennett arrived with her parents. She ran straight to Carl and hugged one of his legs. "I missed you, Carl." "Did you miss me?" Carl chirped and picked her up carefully, setting her on his back. Lucy giggled and waved at everyone. "Look how tall I am." Vexthor watched all of this from a safe distance. The humans treated Carl like he was just another member of the community. They were not afraid. Even the children showed no fear, and children were usually the most honest about danger. If Carl was a threat, the children would sense it. But they did not. They saw him as a friend. "I do not understand humans," Krauzik said, standing beside Vexthor. "They should be terrified. Instead, they are cooking food and laughing." "Humans evolved on a death world," Dr. Yelena said. She had been studying Earth biology and human history extensively. "Do you know what kinds of predators they lived alongside? Creatures with claws and teeth that could kill them instantly, venomous snakes and spiders, megafauna that massed several tons, disease that killed millions, weather events that destroyed entire cities, and yet they survived. They did not just survive, they thrived." "How?" Jarn asked. "By being more dangerous than everything trying to kill them," Dr. Yelena said, "but also by being the most cooperative species on their planet. Humans are pack hunters. They work together. They protect each other, and somewhere in their evolution, they extended that protection to other species. They domesticated wolves into dogs, wildcats into pets, dangerous prey animals into livestock. They have a saying, any animal can be tamed with patience and kindness. But Carl is not from their world," Vexthor pointed out. "He is an alien predator. To them, that does not matter," Dr. Yelena said. "Watch Jake interact with Carl. He uses the same techniques he would use with any animal. Calm voice, consistent behavior, clear boundaries, rewards for good behavior, and most importantly, genuine affection. Jake does not see Carl as a monster. He sees him as a being deserving of respect and care." Vexthor spent the afternoon observing the barbecue. Jake cooked large amounts of meat on a metal grill, along with vegetables and something called corn on the cob. Carl got his own plate piled high with food. The humans chatted and laughed, and several of them asked Vexthor and his team about their home worlds and what space was like. One older human male named George Turner asked Vexthor, "So you folks came all this way just to check on Carl?" "That is real dedicated. Most people would not care what happened to one creature." "Carl is dangerous," Vexthor said. "He has killed many beings." "Has he?" George asked. Or did he kill beings who were hurting him? Because from what Jake tells me, your people kept him locked up and tortured him. Can't say I blame him for fighting back. It was not torture, Vexthor said, but the words felt hollow. It was research. Research without consent is torture, George said firmly. I was in the military back in the day. Saw some things in the war that still bother me. One thing I learned, just because you can do something to someone does not mean you should. Especially when they cannot fight back or speak up for themselves. That night, after the other humans left, Vexthor sat on Jake's porch and watched the stars. Jake came out with 2 bottles of something he called beer and offered one to Vexthor. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. You think I am crazy? Jake said finally. I think you are either the bravest being I have ever met, or the most foolish, Vexthor admitted. I have not decided which, Jake laughed. Maybe both. But here's the thing. I grew up on this farm. My granddad built this place from nothing. He taught my dad and my dad taught me. And the most important lesson I learned was this. Strength without kindness is just cruelty. We humans, we are strong. We are dangerous. We killed off most of the predators on our planet, mastered fire, built cities, split the atom, went to space. We are apex predators in every sense of the word. Then why show mercy to something that could kill you? Vexthor asked. Because that is what makes us human, Jake said simply. Any creature can kill when it is scared or hungry. That is just nature. But choosing not to kill, choosing to show compassion even when you do not have to, that is what makes us more than just predators. That is what makes us people. Vexthor thought about that. He thought about his 30 years of military service, all the times he had followed orders without question. He thought about the Void Reaper in captivity, tortured in the name of science. He thought about Carl playing with children and protecting an old dog. The Galactic Council will order me to kill Carl, Vexthor said quietly. When I report what I have seen here, they will not believe it. They will think I am compromised or that Carl is manipulating us somehow. They will send another team, and that team will not hesitate. Then do not report it, Jake said. That would be disobeying direct orders. I could lose my rank, my career, everything I have worked for. Vexthor spent the next day preparing his false report. He needed to make it believable, detailed enough to satisfy the council, but not so detailed that they would question it. Dr. Yelena helped him fabricate biosignature data showing Carl's death. Krasik created images of a destroyed body using computer models. Jarn wrote tactical reports describing a brief but intense firefight that ended with the target's elimination. Everything was ready. Vexthor was about to send the report when his communicator lit up with an urgent priority signal. His stomach dropped. Priority signals meant something had changed, and changes were never good. He activated the communicator. The face that appeared on the screen was High Admiral Torvan, one of the senior members of the Galactic Council. Vexthor's hearts began racing. He had never spoken directly to the High Admiral before. This was bad. Commander Vexthor, the Admiral said, his voice cold and formal. I am contacting you regarding your mission status. Your preliminary report indicated you had located the Void Reaper 5 days ago. Since then, we have received no updates. Explain this delay. Admiral, Vexthor said, trying to keep his voice steady. We have been conducting thorough reconnaissance to ensure complete elimination of the target. The creature proved difficult to locate precisely, and we wanted to be certain before engaging. I see, Torvan said, but his expression suggested he did not believe it. Commander, I am going to be direct with you. We have been monitoring communications from your team. Encrypted communications, but not encrypted well enough. We know the Void Reaper is alive. We know it is in the proximity of human civilians. And we know you have not attempted to neutralize it. Vexthor felt cold. They knew. Everything he had planned, all the careful lies, it was all useless. Admiral, I can explain. You have been compromised, Torvan interrupted. Whatever that creature is doing, it has manipulated you somehow. The Galactic Council has therefore made the decision to override your authority. A secondary strike team is already en route to your location. They will arrive in 6 hours with orders to eliminate the Void Reaper by any means necessary. That includes orbital bombardment if ground forces cannot confirm the kill. Admiral, please, Vexthor said urgently. The creature is not a threat. It has been rehabilitated. It has not harmed anyone. There are human civilians here, children. You cannot authorize bombardment of civilian targets. The humans knew the risks when they settled on a death world. Torvin said coldly. The Void Reaper is classified as an extinction-level threat. The Council cannot allow it to live, regardless of collateral damage. You and your team are ordered to evacuate immediately. If you refuse, you will be considered hostile combatants and dealt with accordingly. The screen went dark. Vexthor stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. 6 hours. They had 6 hours before another strike team arrived with orders to kill Carl and anyone who tried to stop them. He ran outside to find Jake. The human was in the field with Carl, teaching him how to drive the tractor. Carl was sitting in the driver's seat, his multiple arms on the controls while Jake stood beside him giving instructions. They both looked happy, peaceful, completely unaware of the death sentence hanging over them. "Jake," Vexthor shouted. "We have a problem. A very serious problem." Jake saw the look on Vexthor's face and climbed down from the tractor. "What happened?" Vexthor explained everything. The Council's order, the incoming strike team, the threat of orbital bombardment. Jake's expression changed as he listened, going from confused to concerned to angry. "So they are going to kill Carl no matter what we say," Jake said flatly. "Even though he has not hurt anyone? Even though he is peaceful now?" "Yes," Vexthor said. "And they will kill anyone who tries to protect him." "Jake, you need to evacuate. Get your neighbors out of here. The strike team will arrive in 6 hours and they will not hesitate to fire on human targets if you interfere." "No," Jake said simply. "Jake, please be reasonable. You cannot fight the Galactic Council. They have weapons that can destroy this entire valley from orbit. You will all die." "Then we die," Jake said. "But we die standing up for what is right. Carl is my friend. He is part of this community now. We do not abandon family just because someone threatens us." "This is insane," Vexthor said. "You are willing to die for a creature you met 1 week ago?" "Yes," Jake said. "Because if I do not stand up for Carl, if I let you people kill him just because it is easier than admitting you were wrong, then what kind of man am I? What does it say about humanity if we only show kindness when it is convenient?" Vexthor realized he was not going to change Jake's mind. The human had made his decision and nothing would sway him. It was admirable and terrifying at the same time. Jake pulled out his phone and started making calls. Within 30 minutes, people began arriving at the farm. Betty Hayes came with her late husband's hunting rifle. Dan and Marie Cooper came with their own weapons, having sent their children to stay with family in the next county. George Turner arrived with a shotgun and a grim expression. More neighbors kept coming until there were nearly 40 humans gathered in Jake's yard, all of them armed and ready to fight. "You folks do not have to do this," Jake told them. "This is my fight. Carl is my responsibility." "Carl is all of our responsibility," Betty said firmly. "He is part of Clearwater Valley now, and we protect our own." "Besides," George added, "what kind of people would we be if we let some government bullies push us around? I did not survive 3 wars just to roll over when someone tells me what to do." Lucy Bennett was there too, despite her parents trying to make her stay home. She held onto Carl's leg and cried, "They cannot take you away, Carl. I will not let them." Carl made soft chirping sounds and gently patted Lucy's head with one claw. He did not fully understand what was happening, but he knew his friends were upset, and that upset him too. Vexthor watched the humans prepare their defense with a mixture of awe and dread. They were positioning themselves around the farm, setting up what they called hunting blinds for cover, checking their weapons. Some of them had military experience and were directing the others on tactics. They were actually preparing to fight an advanced alien military force with primitive projectile weapons. "This is suicide," Jarn said quietly. "These weapons cannot penetrate our armor. Our shields will stop their bullets. And that is just the ground team. If the strike force uses orbital weapons, nothing these humans do will matter." "I know," Vexthor said. "But try telling them that." Dr. Yelena approached, her tentacles writhing anxiously. "Commander, there might be another option. If we can prove to the Council that Carl is truly rehabilitated, that he is no longer a threat, they might reconsider." "How?" Vexthor asked. "We have been telling them that for days. They do not believe us." "Then we need someone they cannot dismiss," Dr. Yelena said. "Someone with authority, with credentials. Commander, we need to contact the human government. If Earth's official representatives vouch for Carl, the Council would have to listen." It was a slim chance, but it was better than nothing. Vexthor asked Jake how to contact human authorities. Jake made some calls and eventually got through to someone at what they called the State Department. Vexthor explained the situation as clearly as he could. There was an alien creature on Earth that the Galactic Council wanted to eliminate, but it had been peacefully integrated into human society and posed no threat. The human official listened politely and then said, "Sir, I appreciate you calling, but we do not have any protocols for this situation. I will need to escalate this to my supervisors. Can you call back in a few days?" "We do not have a few days," Vexthor said urgently. "We have hours, minutes, please. You need to contact the Galactic Council immediately and tell them that Earth recognizes this creature as a peaceful resident under your protection. I do not have the authority to make diplomatic declarations," the official said. "That requires approval from multiple departments, and that process takes time." The call ended with nothing resolved. Vexthor wanted to scream. The humans had invented bureaucracy that could frustrate even alien military commanders. Time kept passing. 5 hours until the strike team arrived, then 4 hours, then 3. The humans maintained their positions, tired but determined. Jake brought food and water to everyone. Carl stayed close to Jake, sensing the tension but not understanding why everyone was so worried. As the sun began to set, Betty Hayes walked over to where Vexthor was standing. "You are a good man," she said. "I can tell. You do not want this to happen any more than we do." "I am a soldier," Vexthor said. "I follow orders." "No," Betty said. "You are a person first, soldier second. And persons have to make choices about what is right, not just what they are told to do. My husband used to say that. He was in the military too, saw action overseas. He told me about a time when his commanding officer ordered him to fire on unarmed civilians. He refused, got court-martialed for it, lost his rank, but he never regretted it because he knew it was the right thing to do." "What happened to him?" Vexthor asked. "He lived a good life," Betty said with a sad smile. "Came home, married me, raised kids, worked hard, and died peaceful in his sleep 20 years later. He always said that moment when he chose to do right instead of